Imagine a past so painful that it refuses to stay buried. A story where history does not just haunt, it breathes, it lingers, it takes form. Today we'll discuss Toni Morrison's Beloved, a novel that does not just tell a story, but unearths the trauma, love, and haunting echoes of slavery. What happens when the past refuses to let go? Beloved was written by Toni Morrison and was published in 1987. It is based on real historical events and it is inspired by the true story of Margaret Garner, an enslaved woman who escaped slavery in 1856. When slave catchers tried to take her back, she killed her own daughter rather than let her return to slavery. The novel is set in 1873, just after the American Civil War when slavery had ended, but former slaves still faced racism, poverty, and emotional wounds from their past. Now, Morrison wrote this novel because she wanted to give a voice to those who suffered under slavery. Many history books focused on facts and numbers and ignored the personal experiences and emotions of enslaved people. And through Chet's stories, that is the protagonist, Morrison brings out the deep scars slavery left on individuals and communities. Now, before delving into the novel, you need to know about the American Civil War. The American Civil War took place from 1861 to 1865 in the United States. It was fought between two groups, the northern states and the southern states. The northern states called the Union, which opposed slavery, and the southern states called the Confederacy, which wanted to keep slavery legal. Now, why did this war happen? For many years, the northern and the southern states had different views on slavery. The South depended on enslaved laborers to work on plantations and farms, while the North was moving towards an industrial economy and did not rely on slavery. Now, the main conflict was whether slavery should continue in the United States. When Abraham Lincoln was elected as president in 1860, many southern states feared that he would end slavery. So they broke away from the United States and formed their own country called the Confederacy. And this led to the war. The war lasted for 4 years with many bloody battles and over 6 lakh people died. In 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that enslaved people in the rebellious states were now free. However, true freedom only came when the North won the war in 1865. Although slavery was officially abolished with the 13th Amendment to the US Constitution, former slaves still faced racism, discrimination, and violence. Many were left without land, jobs, or legal rights. And this period after the war was called Reconstruction, that is the period from 1865 to 1877. So even though slavery was over, African Americans continued to struggle for equality and justice for many years. And this is why stories like Beloved are important. They show how the pain of slavery did not end with freedom. Now let's discuss the summary of the novel. Chet is a black woman who used to be a slave at a place called Sweet Home. When Chet was 13, she was sold to the owner of Sweet Home, Mr. Garner. And after the owner's death, Mrs. Garner's brother-in-law takes charge, who is known as the school teacher. Along with his nephew, he started torturing the slaves. Chet faced horrible abuse and one day she decided to escape. She already had 3 children and she was pregnant with the 4th child. Now, while running away, she gave birth to her daughter, Denver, and eventually reached Ohio, where her mother-in-law, Baby Suggs, took her in. Now, for a while, life seemed better. But soon, slave catchers came to take her and her children back. In desperation, Chet tried to kill all her children to stop them from being enslaved. But she managed to kill only her baby daughter. This event changed her life forever. And years later, in 1873, Chet still lives in the same house at 124 Bluestone Road with Denver. But the house is haunted by the ghost of her dead child. The presence of this ghost has scared away Chet's 2 sons, Howard and Bugler, and after a few days, Baby Suggs, her mother-in-law, has passed away. One day, Paul D., a man from Chet's past, arrives. He also suffered at Sweet Home and understands Chet's pain. Paul D. helps Chet feel hopeful again. However, soon after, a strange young woman appears. She calls herself Beloved, the same name written on Chet's dead daughter's tombstone. And Chet starts to believe that this woman is a lost child returned to life. Gradually, Beloved becomes very controlling. She demands Shet's attention all the time. Now Shet is feeling guilty for her past and she gives everything to Beloved, ignoring her own health and well-being. Now Poldy leaves because he feels unwanted. Meanwhile, Denver realizes that her mother is suffering and she seeks help from the community. The women in the neighborhood gather and perform a ritual to drive away Beloved. And during this, Beloved suddenly disappears. After Beloved is gone, Shet is heartbroken, but Denver becomes independent, gets a job, and starts living her own life. Poldy returns, and together Shet and Poldy begin to heal from their painful past. So this is a novel about slavery, memory, and healing. It tells the story of Shet, a woman who escapes slavery but is haunted by her past. She lives with her daughter in a house that seems to be haunted by the ghost of the child she lost. The novel explores how the trauma of slavery does not end with freedom. Shet, like many former slaves, carries deep wounds from her past. When a mysterious woman named Beloved appears, Shet believes that she is her lost child, returned from the dead. And this forces her to relive painful memories. The story is not told in a linear sequence, it moves between past and present, and this shows how Shet's past affects her life even years later. And Morrison uses memory and ghosts to show how history cannot be easily erased. It is about a mother's love, loss, and the struggle to move forward. And it asks important questions like, can we ever escape our past? How do we heal from trauma? The novel ends with a sense of hope as Shet starts to recover and her daughter Denver finds independence. But Beloved takes place after the Civil War when slavery had ended, but former slaves were still suffering. And the main character, Shet, escaped slavery before the war ended, but she still carries the emotional scars from the past. This shows that freedom alone was not enough. Former slaves had to fight for dignity, acceptance, and healing. And the most important themes of this novel are memory and past. Past is always present in Shet's life. Even though she is free, she cannot escape the memories of slavery. And it shows how trauma can haunt people long after the events have happened. Then another theme is motherhood and sacrifices that she made. Shet's love for her children is powerful, but it leads her to make a terrible decision. The novel explores a mother's deep love and the painful choices she makes to protect her child. Then slavery is an important theme. The novel does not just describe the physical suffering of slavery, but also the emotional and psychological pain it causes. And even after escaping, former slaves struggle with guilt, fear, and a loss of identity. The novel also uses ghosts, both literally and symbolically. The ghost of Shet's child haunts her house, but more than that, the past itself haunts Shet and others who suffered. So, trapped between the past and the present, Shet's life is a story etched in scars, both visible and invisible. Once enslaved at Sweet Home, she risks everything for freedom, but even after escaping, the ghosts of her past refuse to let go. The haunting at 124 Bluestone Road is more than just supernatural. It is the weight of history, grief, and choices too painful to name. So when Beloved arrives, she is not just a stranger. She is the embodiment of everything Shet lost, everything she fears, and everything she cannot forget. And as the lines between memory and reality blur, the novel forces us to ask, can the past ever be buried, or does it always find a way to return? So here ends the discussion on this particular novel, which is a important novel from the academic point of view. So if you think that this video has helped you in any way or the other, do like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and let me know your views on this particular topic. See you in the next video. Thank you.